Could you introduce yourself and tell us where you work?
Sure. My name is AlfonsoChacon, and I currently work for El Paso MHMR.
And what is your position at MHMR, and can you kind of give a general job description?
Sure. My current position, actually, I have two titles. It is the Customer Service Director, and I'm also the Ombudsman for El Paso MHMR. And basically what I do is, as the Ombudsman, I advocate for our clients that receive services both for adolescents, children, adolescents, adults that receive either mental health services or intellectual disability services. I also advocate for our staff internally for them to be able to have the resources needed to succeed in their particular positions. And then I advocate for the community in terms of trying to make sure that our constituents, our political leaders, our community and business leaders are aware of what we do as an organization, and try and combat things like stigma that's associated both with mental health illnesses as well as with the intellectual disabilities. As the Customer Service Director, we do a lot of assessing in terms of how our customer service is for our clients and the populations that we serve. So we do a lot of surveys for all levels of service, whether it's physician services, case management, some of our rehab services that we provide. We also survey our community leaders on particular issues dealing with some of the fiscal responsibilities that we have, as well as some of our board members and other advocates that we work with on a regular basis. We do a lot of surveys as well for our internal customers, which of course is our staff. And so we're constantly looking for data to see if we're actually meeting our targets and our thresholds for keeping all of our customers satisfied at all levels.
And just to take a little bit of a step back, can you tell us what MHMR is and what you do in the community?
Sure. Okay. El Paso MHMR, and actually that name is going to be changing in the very near future. It's mental health and mental retardation. Recently, mental retardation is a term that advocates have been wanting to change for quite some time, but due to the federal funding and the funding streams that come particularly with mental retardation, we have not changed the name until just recently. And now we refer to, instead of MR, we're referring to that as intellectual disabilities. And so with both for mental health, on the mental health side, we serve everyone from birth, children from birth, all the way up until adults. For children, for very young children, we have an ECI program that serves children that may have any type of developmental disabilities or mental health issues.
And what does ECI stand for?
ECI stands for the Early Childhood Initiative, and that's available, and all of that takes place in the home. We have all kinds of different specialists, whether it be speech therapists, physical therapists. We have counselors, some families will see a dietitian, and it's just basically to incorporate wellness for those early childhood years, which there's a lot of brain development that is very critical that takes place during those early years. Once a child graduates from ECI, if need be, they can continue on to services through our children's programs. And so through the children's programs, we serve children that may have behavioral health, mental health issues, and again, intellectual disabilities as well, or a combination of those. And so with that, they're involved with case management. They get psychiatric services on top of any other resources in the community that we may try and tap into to make sure that all their needs are met. We work, of course, with the parents or the guardians primarily to make sure that that their needs are met and that they can have the best foundation to be successful, whether it be at school or at home. And then for adults with mental health illnesses, it changes a little bit. There it starts to become a little bit more specific. We don't deal with as many different types of diagnoses. We have what we call the three priority populations, and those include people that may be diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression, or something very closely related to those. And with that, again, it's a matter of providing them case management services, crisis, emergency services available to the entire community for any population. Anyone having a mental health crisis has access to our crisis intake unit 24/7, 365 days a year. And then for the adult services, of course, it also involves psychiatric services where they can see either a psychiatrist or a nurse practitioner to receive prescription medications. And depending on their level of need, then they will receive additional services through what we call rehab services, and that can include medication monitoring, coping skills, some group sessions like anger management, as well as other looking into other needs, making sure their basic needs are met, such as housing, and if need be, budgeting with any monies that they might have. On the intellectual disability side, again, it's a lot of the same foundation in working with case management to make sure that the appropriate needs are met depending on what type of program an individual may be in. There are a lot of programs through Medicaid for those that are diagnosed with an intellectual disability, and so depending on what program there is, we have everything from day-hab services to again the clinical services where they're seeing a psychiatrist for medications, and of course there are some individuals that have more than one diagnosis, so they receive different services depending on what their needs are.
And can you provide an example, a specific example of the type of project you worked on and what your role was in that project? Or
Probably an ongoing project that deals a lot with health education that I've been involved with since the beginning has been fighting the stigma that's associated with the services that we provide. Unfortunately, when you compare our services to just regular physical health type issues, let's say services that are provided for diabetes or for something like heart disease, it's one in those types of issues dealing with let's say, for example, with cancer. There's a lot of programs that you'll see to raise awareness for those particular chronic conditions, and it's one of those things that people have no problems discussing, either themselves or their family members having something like diabetes or heart disease or cancer or anything related to those types of illnesses. However, when it comes to something like an intellectual disability or a mental illness, which is also a chronic condition, everything from just being able to raise levels of awareness through education to trying to raise the need for funding for those types of services, because of the stigma that's associated with it becomes, that's a challenge in itself. That's something with other physical health problems you don't have to deal with. And so we've done this at many different levels, where we've planned educational campaigns through billboard advertising, again working with our local elected officials. We've done campaigns where we have a superhero to kind of communicate the need for children to be able to have someone to look up to and not to be ashamed or concerned with the fact that they might have a behavioral health issue, and that with medication and the proper foundation of services, they can succeed and reach their full level of potential. And so it's one of those things that it's an ongoing project. We've taken different directions with it, but that's something that I've worked very, very closely with.
And on a day-to-day level, as far as the responsibility areas of a health educator, which responsibility areas do you practice the most?
Probably the one that I deal with on a regular basis, especially because the need, especially on the mental health side, but also on the intellectual disability side. The resources that we are able to provide as an agency are not going to be able to meet all of the resources that individuals have on a regular basis. So it's definitely being able to tap into other resources, being able to coordinate with other healthcare agencies, to see what needs that our individuals have that they can use, and as well as being able to educate other healthcare agencies and other health educators out there with what we can provide, because sometimes they run into someone that has issues that they have the services for, but there's other issues that they come across, such as mental health issues, that they are not aware of all of the services that we provide. And so it's really just all the coordination of services that are available, especially in our community. There's not one agency that can do it all. And so I think that just the networking is probably something that if you don't do it, you're not going to be able to be successful. It helps with everything from stretching your dollars, stretching your resources as much as possible, but making sure that the needs that are not provided by our agency or by another agency are still met. And so that's got to be the biggest area in health education that I use pretty much on a daily basis.
And can you give us a background of your education?
Sure. I graduated from UTEP from the health science program with a minor in community health back in 1995. I became CHEST certified in 1996. And just a brief employment history, I worked for the Diabetes Association, El Paso Diabetes Association, as a health educator for 5 years, 3 years full-time, 2 years part-time. Worked for the health department, first for the WIC program. I was actually their first health educator hired, and we hired a whole team of health educators to implement and provide the health education for 40 to 50,000 WIC participants. And I was there for 6 years. From there I stayed within the health department, but I moved to the preparedness side and ran their community health preparedness program, dealing with bioterrorism and emergency preparedness for the next 3 years. And then from there I've been with El Paso MHMR now for 6 years.
So you've had a varied career
Yes.
in health education.
Yes.
What are some of the challenges of your job, or this job specifically, or just in terms of health education in general, based on your experience?
Probably some of the biggest challenges is just trying to make sure that regardless of what the population that you're dealing with, when it comes to health education, it's making sure that you can continuously show, and of course the only way you can do this is by providing hard data to show that you can save a lot of monies and prevent a lot of issues through education and awareness, and by coordinating with other agencies on a continuous basis. That's been true when I worked for the Diabetes Association. The quicker that you can start someone on managing their diabetes, or better yet, preventing their diabetes if they're at high risk, and the dollars that are saved, someone with diabetes that's managed can be healthier than people that don't have diabetes. In terms of WIC, again, you're talking about from pregnancy. Having a healthy pregnancy prevents a lot of problems for mother, for her own health, of course, as well as for her unborn child, and getting the child started onto a good start from birth on to the first few years of life. And so again, a lot of that prevention, it's going to save. The healthcare costs that are saved are astronomical through the education, teaching them how to eat, teaching them what are the responsibilities for prenatal care, as well as the care for the child during the first few years. On the preparedness side, that was a big turn in a different direction, but it was still real important because of the fact that we were dealing, of course, initially with bioterrorism. We dealt with a lot of smallpox concerns, but even through the foundation that was laid through the preparedness, initially started with the program, that helped to look into issues dealing with everything from the pandemic influenza type issues that we've come across, as well as any issues that we've had with public health in general that are deemed emergencies. And so again, just networking for the public health department, both local, state, and other levels of public health, being able to coordinate with other agencies that prior to that they didn't coordinate with near as much, being law enforcement and fire. Just building up that type of a relationship made it a lot easier to work together when an emergency did hit. And that's been everything from influenza type concerns to the Katrina evacuees that came to El Paso back in 2005. And then dealing with MHMR, again, it's a lot of it is a lot of the issues that we deal with the populations that we serve at El Paso MHMR. Not only do they have a diagnosed mental illness or intellectual disability, but of course a lot of these individuals have other healthcare problems where they need to be able to have the potential to take care of themselves, to deal with things like high blood pressure, diabetes, even just the basic needs of having a healthy diet. A lot of our population, unfortunately, have problems with chain smoking, and so of course, you know, someone that has a mental illness that is not under control is going to have a shorter lifespan than someone without a mental illness, and there's studies that show that. So again, the education of our clients in trying to have healthy of a lifestyle, and of course not only just the lifestyle, but tapping into their other types of healthcare professionals, whether it be their PCP or any other type of healthcare professional that they need to is really important.
And conversely, what are some rewards of your job?
Easily, I mean, if you like working with people, there's no better feeling than seeing someone learn from regardless of what level of health education they're having or what approach is taken, but just seeing someone go from being in a state of denial, being scared, and either ignoring or doing very little to take care of their issue, to seeing them fully independent, in control of whatever concerns that they had previously, and taking a proactive approach with prevention. So, you know, and I've seen that time and time again. I've seen a lot of people go from hitting rock bottom to being pretty independent and in control.
Good. Based on your experience, and you have worked in a variety of settings, what is the salary range for an entry-level health education specialist and then a more advanced health education specialist?
Probably starting off, depending on the agency. Again, some of the nonprofits may not pay as much, but again, it's you have to, I think, probably take into consideration the benefits that come along with the salary. But I would say most starting salaries are going to be somewhere around the low 30s to start off with. And once if a health educator is running a program, but you know, by the time they get the experience, maybe have a master's degree behind them, they are now, you know, taking director positions. I've seen a lot of salaries go into the mid 50s to the high 60s.
Okay. And what is your advice to future health education specialists? How can they be successful not only in their academic careers, but once they graduate? I would say be very open-minded. I mean, if you would have asked me when I was starting out, I never thought I would have had the career opportunities, which I've been very lucky to come across. But just keep real open-minded as to, you know, what jobs they're willing to take. And any job that they take, just try and network, you know, keep in touch with their academic population, whether it be their professors or their classmates, but those connections that they make while they're in school are going to be really important later on. And then, of course, the more networking and the more relationships they can build, it just makes your job that much easier. And so knowing people, and this day and age, you know, between some of being able to keep up with people through social networks and through the internet, through email, it makes it a lot easier. And this is kind of a more general question, but what do you see some future challenges for the health education profession in general in terms of training health education specialists to be responsive in the 21st century with the changing climate of healthcare and whatnot?
Right now, in our current situation, I would say probably some of the challenges are just going to be with funding, because right now we're in an economic recession, and so unfortunately, it's kind of a catch-22. The better you do in your job in terms of health education, you can prevent things. It gives sometimes the funding streams, especially if we're talking about government, the sense that everything is okay and that whatever programs that are doing such a good job are really not needed anymore. And unfortunately, it's not until programs are non-existent for a while that it takes a while for whatever issues to start to become problematic until they're a full-blown crisis. And so, and I see a lot of that on the mental health side as well. Public health and mental health are very, very similar.
And so the better the job you do, it's almost like you're making it sound like there isn't a problem, but it's just a problem that's under control. And because we're taking such a proactive approach, it's making things look like everything's that there aren't any existent problems. So the one thing I think that is the big challenge for the future is just being able to make sure that the needs, because there's a lot of healthcare problems that are still very rampant. We're talking about obesity problems leading to from very early childhood that are going to lead to lots of problems with chronic conditions, with heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes, and as well as a lot of issues on the mental health side. Because of the funding that may be cut due to the current economic crisis, health education is going to be more and more important, again, because of the fact that the monies that are saved through prevention and through proactive type approaches are going to make a big impact. And so it's just a matter of being able to make sure that regardless of what area, whether it's the nonprofits, whether it's government, whether it's in the private healthcare industry working for hospitals, that that type of awareness and the need for health education is made sure that it doesn't diminish in any way.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Chacon, and we appreciate